course, it's very easy to be anti anything when you haven't even met a Muslim in your life. So I actually had that opportunity when I was in college for the first time. And when I realized that speaking to a Muslim person completely changed the way I approached what it means to be a Muslim, what it means to be an Arab or a Palestinian. And then I understood the power that it has, that connecting through the small things that we had in common and also through the things that we had different. It was a bridge to speak about the differences. And the things that really brought us together in the first moment was to meet other women, for example, that Muslim women in my university that went through many different challenges that were similar to the ones I was having. Like, what do you do if a holiday falls on the middle of your tests or things like that? And I understood how powerful it was. I started to really get involved to organizing that kind of encounters. But still, I always felt I was the only Orthodox Jew. I was always the only Orthodox Jew in the room. And when I moved to Israel, I don't remember exactly how I heard about the Interfaith Encounter Association, but I contacted you and I wanted to join a group. And the first encounter that I was present, it was actually an encounter with yeshiva boys, like boys that was studying in a religious seminar with Palestinians from Hebron. And the topic was the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, which is like the center of the conflict, if you may say so. And they were speaking about it in religious terms. They were thinking what the Torah talks about it and how Muslims approach that location and how each one thought about what the other thought. And they were like kind of deconstructing all these different misconceptions they had about how the other thought about it. And that was very powerful for me.
At the end of the course, I got to learn so many things about Judaism, about Christianity, about even Islam. And I got to, we got to share our traditions, our cultures, our religion, our families even, and the food. And at the end, you realize how similar we are to each other. Like the similarities far exceeds our differences. Like I felt like we were a part of one big family. It was truly touching, and I really recommend just people to go out, to interact with people, to talk to others, because when you talk to others, you realize how similar you are to how similar we are. And it got me to believe that a change is possible in Israel and Palestine, in the whole world. It is possible. You just need to believe in us. We're humans, and that's what connects us to all of us. We're humans. We're the same person, and that's what was the main thing for me there.
When I heard about a pure women peace movement interested in gathering Palestinian who lives in Israel and Israelis, no matter their color is, no matter their religion is, and they believe peace must be raised this time, this period. As women, I felt so proud to be part of women movement. It had that power in the streets. They have Women Wage Peace, they have 50,000 participants in the Israeli streets. And that's never happened before, truly. I can't guarantee about the Middle East in general, but I can say it for sure in Israel. So this movement, which work hard within a name of women, whose they are like 50% in the Israeli society, as much as women are 50% in the Palestinian society. So I totally believe that now it's the time for Palestinian women and Israeli women to raise their voices and ask for peace and for a fair solution in order to live as a normal people in the other side of the world, in any other country in the world.
And when we moved here, I realized that growing up as a child in Haifa, I would see Arabs. I would see Israeli Arabs, in Haifa mostly. And also afterwards, when I studied my bachelor's and my master's degree, I had, Arabs who were students next to me, sitting with me in classes, and they were really nice, etc. But I didn't know Palestinians at all. Once we moved, Palestinians who live in the West Bank, And then when I moved to Laila Hadar, then suddenly I realized that we have Palestinian villages all around us, and there's no way of actually like meeting the Palestinian woman who's just across the road. There isn't really a way. And I started getting curious, and I had this dream of somehow meeting the Palestinian women who live in the Palestinian village next to me, and discovering what it's like for them to be a mother, what it's like for them to be a wife, what are their dreams, what are their hopes, what are their worries, what are their fears, how can we connect as, you know, as mothers, as human beings. Then I got acquainted with Women Wage Peace, and that was like a wow for me, because it actually gave me the opportunity to be a peace activist, even though I live in a settlement in the West Bank, because I also believe in a nonviolent solution for the conflict. And also it helped me find ways to meet with Palestinian women, wonderful women like Rafa and other women, many women that I've met, and to hear their stories and to hear their narratives, and also to be able to explain what it is for me to live in the West Bank and why do I choose to live here. So this was very important for me, and to actually hear each other, that we can all hear each other and listen and really understand that where we live is important for all of us. But in the end, we're all here to stay, you know, and we're all in the same boat. And if we rock that boat, then we're all going to be rocked. And if we flip the boat, we're all going to flip. And I see it no other way than learning to live in peace, side by side, living together.
There's a lack of understanding and lack of education within our community of the real nuances and issues of situation in Palestine. And when I've spoken to young people who've been involved, who are not Palestinian, who may not even be Arab, but are Muslim and want to be involved in this, in the conversation of Palestine, they're quite eager to get involved because they feel that they have no other opportunity anywhere else. Not only to talk about Palestine in a safe environment, but also not to have the opportunity to speak to somebody who's got of a different narrative, you know, of a different perspective, and that is an issue. That is a problem, you know. So that's why FODIP is so important. Not only to equip young people around dialogue skills, but also to equip people with information, with knowledge, with experiences, with them having not only to speak to people from the region, but have the experience of going to the region and meeting people over there. It has a massive, massive impact. And I know one or two young people who have called me over the last few weeks and have said, thank you very much for FODIP, because if we hadn't been involved with FODIP and we hadn't gone to the region, we actually wouldn't understand a lot of what was happening, and we wouldn't be able to give a constructive response to some of the people in our own community, but also to have that constructive dialogue and meaningful conversation with people of a different perception and different narrative.
And we were waiting for Dad to come back, like most of the people that were drafted. But he was not coming back, and Mother started to go look for him in hospitals and in army base with no results. And only after a few days or weeks, I can't remember, I was coming home from school, which we started, and there was a car parked next to our home, which I was not familiar with. And then I got home. They sent me to the neighbors. They say, don't come home. I went to the neighbors. I had nothing to do there. I understood something wrong is going on, but didn't know what. And then I got home and I saw the home started to get crowded with family members and people I didn't know. And there was a lot of stress in there. People were crying. Nobody told me what's going on. Only later in the evening, my auntie took me aside and said that father was killed and he's not coming back. And that was the beginning of my new life. My youth, my childhood has ended at that point. I wasn't even aware of the situation. I wasn't even able to cry. Never in my life I experienced anything like that. Even nothing like that happened to my friends or anybody I knew. So I don't think I was even ever able to process what just took place, what's going to be the future, what's going to be about my family, about myself. 1 month later, my mother gave birth to my youngest sister, which was a great disappointment to me. I was hoping for a boy. But it's not just that. I think it was considered a disaster for us because there was nobody to take care of the farm. My mother was really crushed and couldn't take care of the 4 kids. One of them was just born. I was sent to a kibbutz the following month with a foster family for several years. And pretty much the years that came by then, I was pretty angry. I began to understand that the Arab killed my father in the war. I'll grow up and I'll revenge. I'll go to the army. Maybe I'm gonna be a pilot and be able to bomb them and kill as many as possible Arabs. This was like as I look at it from now to those thoughts of a kid that nobody really tried to help him understand what's going on, what was really the history of all that. All I could think about is revenge.
So it was the first time I speak about my son and what happened to him. And it's like to open the wound again after all these years, bring all memories back. I couldn't complete the story and I started to cry. And I was shocked when one of the Israeli women came and she sat in front of me and she apologized and said, "I'm sorry." And I was shocked and said, "Why are you sorry for?" And she said, "Yeah, I didn't hurt you or didn't do anything for you, but I know the people who are responsible about the death of your son from my own people, and I'm a mother too. I could understand your pain. I could understand even the word that you couldn't say." And she came and hugged me. And I was really touched because it was the first time someone talked to me like that, even my family members. No one of them talked to me like this. She didn't know that time, but by her simple words that she changed my life forever. And she opened my heart, she opened my eyes to understand new things. And it's not just a simple thing, it's something really like, her word was like light comes from a dark, deep place.
When I was thinking about the challenges that we're facing today in this field, I kind of group them into 3 types: economic challenges, political challenges, and what I'll call cultural challenges. The economic and the political can be dealt with quite quickly, I think, and they could equally be applied to those working in areas other than Israel-Palestine. But it's the kind of third group that concerns me most and that I'll talk about most, what I call the cultural challenges. Explain what I mean by this. I mean the culture that surrounds discussion of Israel-Palestine in the UK. It's a very important topic. It's my kind of obsession. It's also a topic, I think, of surprisingly high national importance. By national, I mean British. This can often really surprise observers from other countries, not least Israel. And if you told me 10 or so years ago when I first started working on this topic, that Israel-Palestine would become one of the most kind of potent symbols for wider culture wars, for want of a better term, in the UK, then I too would have been very surprised. If you told me then it would tear apart one of the 2 biggest political parties in this country, for example, play a huge part in its most recent electoral defeat, I wouldn't have believed you again. The proportion of the UK which is actively interested in Israeli-Palestinian matters, to the extent that they're prepared to give time or money, it's obviously relatively small. for most Britons, and this is a big generalization, but Israel and Palestine are, quoting Chamberlain, faraway countries of which we know little. Bizarrely, however, despite this fact, Israel-Palestine is actually a huge issue in British political, small p political life. Why? Because even though the interested group is small in numerical terms, its members are obsessional when it comes to Israel-Palestine. It's a really big priority for them. Superficially, this might sound like no bad thing for those of us working in the field, right? I work in what should be a niche issue, and yet you have a disproportionately large pool of interested people. However, and this is the key point, of that population of interested people, engaged people, the proportion of them who approach the issues with nuance, who are open to dialogue, who are committed to hearing both narratives and to the national well-being of both Israeli Jews and Palestinians, in other words, those people who are constructive, is, in my opinion, tiny.
I understood that this was a moment of blessing, because for the first time in my life, I'm experiencing how the other experiences me. And if I can just hold that, I'll be a better human being. I didn't say anything. How is the conversation going to continue? A light bulb goes off in my mind, and I see in my mind's eye my neighbors walking out in the fields for a hike, for Bible study. And of course, most of the people are carrying guns. We're afraid of the Palestinians. We always carry guns. And I suddenly realized it must be terribly frightening to the Palestinians to see these strange looking people carrying guns. So I said to Jamal, what do you want? We carry guns because we're afraid of you. And he looked at me as if I fell from the moon. He said, you're crazy. You're not afraid of us. We're afraid of you. And I was even more confused.
On the way back to Bethlehem with my group, we had a last meeting. We were supposed to have a last meeting, and that meeting was with Rav Hanan Schlesinger from Roots. And it was actually, I wasn't really sure about what Roots is. I thought he will be talking to us about the life in Gush Etzion as a settler. But then I learned on the way that it's a people-to-people initiative, and they are Palestinians and Israeli settlers together, and they are working for peace and understanding. And I was shocked. I mean, what are you talking about? I couldn't really understand that because in our context, to hear about it, to hear for the first time about such a project between Palestinians and settlers, you feel as a Palestinian that the intentions behind this project are not, or is not clean. There is something suspicious about it. Why settlers want to make peace? Peace means for them they have to leave the Palestinian territories. They have to leave Judea and Samaria. So, however, I came to Roots with many questions in my head and a lot of hesitance and suspicion, as I say. We sat there, we met with Rav Hanan, and he started sharing with us the same story that he shared with you now. I think even a little bit longer. He talked in more details. And there was the moment when Hanan spoke about the truth, about how he realized at some point that the truth does not only exist on his side, but also it exists on my side. And listening to his stories and to his story and to the story with Jamal and his encounters with other Palestinians, I felt Roots very confused and challenged and overwhelmed, because I felt that the person I have just met and the voice I've listened to was a voice of recognition and empathy.
Thank you for watching this video. We have more inspirational speakers joining us for our regular webinars. Visit talkmatters.info to join our mailing list and come along to our next live webinar.